Welcome to They Mostly Pot Out at Night. Mostly, I am Salem, joined by my co-host Graveyard.
Hello.
This is episode 35 of our weekly All Things Horror podcast. Why are we so afraid of the woods? Is it human nature? Is it ghosts? Or perhaps a pagan god or two? Join us as we venture into these woods and these movies that we're watching this week and find out what is lurking behind those trees. 3 movies this week, all having to do with, of course, being in the woods. They are Dead End, Eden Lake, and The Ritual. Yes. We're going to be starting out with Dead End. Dead End, I don't know if it is 2003 or 2004 because the internet keeps telling me the one or the other. I don't know which one it's supposed to be. But anyway, 2003, 2004. It's around there somewhere.
I think people wash their memories of this movie.
Yeah. 2003, 2004, somewhere around there. We've
Yep.
So yes, Dead End. Anything you want to add before I start rolling into this there?
No, we'll get into this one. All right, I think.
All right. So Dead End. Dead End is technically a Christmas movie.
It is.
Because it takes place on Christmas Eve, and they even sing a Christmas carol in this movie. So
the same one over and over.
Well, it's only twice. You're fine.
Again, the verses, I don't know.
Well, yeah. Well, to be honest, no one else in the car knew them besides like one person. So, yes. Okay. So anyway, basically, we are in a family car that is going to, I guess, Grandma's house for Christmas dinner. There is I think it's like an SUV. But anyway, so basically, we have mom, we have dad, we have, teenage, punk annoying son. We have the older daughter who I don't know how old she is, but I'm assuming she's probably out of the house at this point because she brings her her fiance with her to this thing. So there's the 5 of them.
Yes.
Essentially they're driving. The dad is tired and getting bored of the interstate, so he decides to take a shortcut by driving through the back roads. So I guess to keep his mind stimulated, to keep him awake. I don't quite get the logic of that, but that's, hey, whatever you do, whatever keeps you awake.
And it's also only like 7 o'clock at night.
Well,
point that out.
Well, in December, so yes, 7:30 at night in December is pitch black. That's a fact.
I'm just saying he's very tired he's very tired at that early. Like,
when you're in a car driving with a bunch of sleeping people, yeah, you get tired too. So, they're driving. Everybody passes out. Dad dozes off. And then almost hits a car, coming the other direction. There's a whole lot of honking and tires squealing and everything. And, he pulls over to the side of the road. Everybody is now awake, kind of yelling at him for dozing off. And, where are we? Why are we in the middle of nowhere? Why did you leave the interstate? All those kind of infighting things going on, but, of course he still wants to drive because now he's awake. That adrenaline rush keeps him awake. So now he wants to keep going. So
also he doesn't want anyone else to drive his car.
Well, yeah, but again, but he says, yeah, he's good. The daughter offers to drive, but apparently she had, wrecked one of their other cars. So he's like, no, thanks. So they're driving down the road. And they pass like a little cabin and they kind of point out like, oh, look, there's a cabin. Anyway, further down the road, dad sees, something on the side of the road. So he stops. And he gets out and he's like, I saw a woman all in white holding something. Everybody's like looking around like, yeah, there's nobody here. What are you talking about? And then all of a sudden, this woman appears at his window. She's wearing all white. She's holding what appears to be a baby. And she's got like a big kind of like gash on her head. Fresh, like a fresh wound on her head. So they're like, okay, hey, it looks like you need help. It appears like she's in shock. like, okay, well, what should we do? This is 2003, 2004, so cell phones do technically exist, but like apparently only one person in the car has one, which is Brad. That's the fiance guy. But his isn't working. He doesn't have any signal. So they're like, okay, well, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna put her in the car. We're gonna drive back to that cabin we found, and we're going to see if it has a phone to try to call for help. And the daughter offers like, oh, I'll just get out and walk there. You can let her in the car. And everybody is just fine with that. Like, sure. So she gets out of the car. They all turn around and go back towards the cabin. And then the older daughter is just casually strolling down the road, back to the cabin. So they get to the cabin. The annoying son, Richard, gets out of the car, like proceeds to walk over to a tree, hang up a Playboy centerfold, and starts cranking it.
Yeah.
While mom and dad go into the cabin to look for a phone. While Brad, the fiance, and the lady with the baby sit in the car. So dad and mom are going through this cabin. It looks like an old hunting cabin. There's like skulls on the walls and like bear traps and stuff like that. So mom and dad are going through this hunting cabin. They find an old phone, but of course it doesn't work. And the phone looks like it's from like 1935. So yeah, it doesn't work. So we cut back to the fiance hanging out with the lady in white in the car. He kind of notices the baby's like face is like covered by the blanket. He's like, isn't the baby having a hard time breathing through that blanket? And she's like, oh, here, hold on to her for a minute. She'll be fine. She's dead. He's
right.
Like, wait,
yeah,
what?
She's dead.
Yeah. He's like, wait, what? So he's holding the baby, and he's like, something feels wrong. And so he like uncovers the baby's face, and we don't actually get to see it, but it is very obvious that the baby is dead. So we get his like shocked reaction. And then we cut to Marion, who is the older daughter, walking down the road, and she sees like this old timey hearse or Cadillac station wagon, if you prefer, driving down the road. And then she looks in the back and she sees Brad, the fiance, like, kind of banging on the window, like as if he was like being kidnapped. So she kind of panics. She runs, back to the cabin. Richard finishes his, little party that he was having over there.
Because there's a scream, so he has to stop.
Yeah. So he finishes his little party. He comes back. Basically, the lady is gone and Brad is gone. So they're like, oh, what happened? What happened? We don't know. And then Marion says, well, I saw this car drive past me on the road that had him in it. So like, it looks like somebody like kidnapped him. And they're like, okay, everybody in the car. So they all get in the car. They look around for the lady. They don't see her. They're like, whatever, we got to go save Brad. So they're driving down this street. They're going like, as fast as this little SUV will go. Everybody's freaking out because he's going way too fast. And they're going for a long time before they realize like, okay, like we should have caught up to him by now. There's no way that we haven't. Like something is going on. And then dad sees something in the road. He, pulls over. They get out and look, and it is Brad's like mangled corpse laying in the middle of the road.
Sure it is.
Well, they don't show it directly, but it's Brad's mangled corpse. We get kind of like the POV of the corpse. And we see dad is like trying to get his phone out of his pocket with a stick. And then
I thought he was legit poking him with the stick at first.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's what he was.
Yeah.
The son dives in, gets the phone. Of course, there's no signal. They can't call anywhere. But they have the phone, which has his ear stuck to it because he had like this kind of hoop earring that was hooped around the antenna of the phone, because these are old timey phones that still have antennas.
Yes, you had the antenna you'd pull out of your flip phone. I remember these distinctly.
Well, yeah, again, and in 2003, that was pinnacle flip phone technology.
Oh yeah.
So obviously everybody's like now upset. Marion basically goes into like full catatonia. Like she just blanks out, doesn't respond, just stares straight. They drag Brad off to the side of the road, but they leave him there. And they're like, yeah, we're going to go get help. We see this sign on the side of the road that says Marcotte is the next town, which they can't find on a map anywhere. But they're like, okay, we'll keep driving in this direction. We'll try to get help. We'll bring him back to. He's not very obviously dead, but at least they can get somebody to come back and pick him up.
Yeah.
So they're driving down the road again. Again, time is going by. Marion is still in a state of catatonia. Everybody's trying to talk to her. She's not responding at all. This is where the second Jingle Bells singing, she starts singing Jingle Bells. And then the mom is kind of sort of going along with her, I think to just, because this is the only way she's communicating in the last, 30 minutes, whatever it's been. But yeah, everybody's just kind of like, bothered by what's happening. So eventually they have a blowout where his tire blows out and he has to pull over and get the thing off. He's having a hard time with the lug nuts and stuff, but he does eventually get him off. He gets that off, gets the tire back on, and then Richard, the son, is now missing. He wanders off, I think, and then he gets captured.
Yeah, I think he sees something or thinks he sees something and just kind of follows it. Maybe thinking it's the lady with the baby.
Oh yeah, no, that's what he goes out to take a leak, and then the lady with the baby starts randomly appears and starts making out with him. And then bizarrely bites off his lower lip, which he seems to be totally fine with.
Yes.
And then
lip gone.
Yeah. And he's bleeding out of his mouth and he seems to be okay with it. And then she drops her white dress. We only see the back of this. And then he goes, what the hell is that? So obviously she's I don't know, injured or something shocking with the rest of her body. And then we cut to the black car driving past again. And we see Richard now trapped in the back, banging to get out, just like Brad was earlier. So this kind of snaps Marion out of her catatonia. The mom was chasing the car down the street. So dad and Marion get back in the car. They drive down, they find the mom. They get her in the car, and as they go down, they're chasing after the car, again, going as fast as little SUV can go. They get down. They get up to where they can kind of see the car in the distance. And then dad runs over something and the mom is positive that it's Richard. They get out of the car and it was Richard. And this time we get a bloody hand that's sticking straight up. But that's it. We don't see the rest of the body, but he's very obviously dead.
Yes.
And this time, since the body is, his son, they clear out all the Christmas presents that were in the back of the car.
That bothered me, I'm like, oh, Brad wasn't good enough, but the son, yeah, we can move the 5 presents that are in the back of the car.
Oh, they were big presents, to be fair.
Yeah.
So they clear out the presents out and they put the son in there. And of course, one of the presents that they pull out at this point is a shotgun that they were getting for their crazy gun nut uncle.
Yes.
Which, I mean, that's a hell of a present. I mean, shotguns aren't cheap.
Yes.
But anyways, so they have shotgun, and they conveniently bought him a box of ammo to go with it, which I don't know if you should buy those things together on Christmas Eve, right? I don't know if you want those together, whatever. I mean, but yeah, so they get the shotgun. I think he also pulls a bottle of whiskey out of the back because one of their uncles is a drunk, and so now he has a bottle of whiskey. Anyway, so yeah, at this point, mom flips out, and mom starts, basically gets into this comically giggly mood. She starts telling them that the real father is this other guy,
Alan.
Yeah, whatever, Alan Rickman or Alan Hickman, I think his name.
Hickman,
whatever.
Yes.
So yeah, this this other guy is the father. He's not the real father. The boy's real name is Michael, not Richard, because that's what Alan wanted to name him. I mean, it's a bizarre thing. So they get her back in the car, and she's just like lost. She's like, they had a pie that they were bringing to Grandma's house. She just starts like eating the pie with her bare hands, which it looks disgusting. Anyway,
but absolutely.
So she like asks for a pen because she wants to draw a picture, and then she draws a picture of just like this mangled body, and she's like hands it to her daughter, like, there you go, I drew Brad for you. I mean, it's disturbing. So everybody is just kind of like unnerved at this point. They're like, okay, we have to get to the hospital. We have to go. And they're driving forever and ever, and no turnoffs, no nothing. He keeps justifying it like, oh, it's an old like forest ranger road. That's why there's no turnoffs. Oh, it's a military road. It's going straight to a military base. That's why there's no turnoffs. That's why there's no one else, because they haven't passed any cars this entire time.
Right. And he goes, Mark Hot must be a military base, and that's why we don't see it on the map.
Right. Yeah, he keeps justifying himself. Anyway, so they're driving down the road. Mom is, kind of fading in and out of like, consciousness or I guess lucidity, I guess is a good way to say it.
And then she also goes to town on a bag of chips.
Right. Yeah. Finds a bag of chips, starts chowing out on that. And anyway, and then she decides sees all these she says she sees all these people on the side of the road waving to her, but they look to be all upset. And she sees her best friend who died like 20 years ago out there. And she's like, I want to go meet her. I want to go hang out with my best friend. He's like, she's dead. And she's like, yeah, whatever, I'm going. So she opens up the door as he's traveling like 75 miles an hour and falls out of the car. So yeah, he pulls to a stop. They run back there. They find like her shoe and like all the stuff that was in her purse and her pockets. And they think she just disappeared. And as they're like standing there, like, figuring out what to do, she walks up behind them. And she she looks like, she's a little raggedy, but she looks like she's okay. Until they realize that like the whole half of her head is missing. And then she proceeds to reach up and to start rubbing on her own brain, which appears to give her pleasure in some way, shape, or form right before she just dies.
I just want to point this out. The mother is played by Lynn Shay, a horror movie icon. Nowadays.
I don't know about icon. I would say like a common player. I wouldn't say icon.
Okay, that's fair.
So anyway, yeah. So she is dead. So they put her in the back of the SUV. They put a blanket over her. And then they just keep again driving down the road. At this point, everybody is like very like, very obviously like upset. Like. This stuff is, bad stuff is happening. I forgot. They stopped off earlier. The mom like shot the dad in the leg. She was like threatening to shoot herself. Again, it's just, very, very weird stuff happening. Anyway, so they're back in the car. They're back driving down the road. They're kind of trying to logic it out. Like, okay, I've driven for this long. We've been heading west the whole time. We should be hitting, the coast at some point in time. Like, obviously the coast is supposed to be 50 miles away. We should be reaching it by now. Like later on, it's been like 60 miles and they're still on the same road. They're still in the same area. They don't know what's going on. Basically, as they're driving, they again pass the little cabin, the little hunting cabin that they went before. They're like, oh, there's got to be a trick of the eyes. It can't be the same one. So they stop, they get out and they check out the cabin. It is. It's the exact same one. So they decide, oh, well, everybody else died when they stopped. We'll just keep moving and we'll be fine. But, obviously we can't keep moving in the car because that's just getting us in circles. We need to go by foot. So they start walking, directly perpendicular to the road. They get to like a barbed wire fence. They get through the barbed wire fence and then they walk and they come on back to the road, to the car on the road, but they're from the other side. So it's like a big loop.
Yes.
So they basically kind of figure out that they're like stuck, and there's nothing that they can do. At this point, I believe. Well, the lady in white comes back.
She was in the cabin with the dad when he went back into it,
right?
Because he went a little crazy in there,
right?
He knew someone else was in there with him,
right? So basically, that lady comes back. and goes after the dad. The dad again, ends up in the car. And Marion sees him in the back of the car, and now knows that she's like alone. She's the last one. So she jumps back in the car. Finally, tries to start it. It doesn't sound like it's going to start it, and then the car just starts moving. I think they forgot to put the sound effect of like the car starting because it was just failed to start, failed to start, failed to start, and then all of a sudden it was moving.
Well, we also got to point out that before he died, the dad let the daughter drive, and he's writing the stuff he wants to do when he gets out of this.
Yeah. Well, thing number one, he wants to go buy some Marilyn Branson records.
Yes.
Thing number two, he wants to go buy an Atari computer system.
Yep. Rightfully so.
Yeah. And then number three is he wants to be the best grandfather ever. Because, the Marion is pregnant. That was like one of the things that she said when she's in her catatonia. She admitted that she was pregnant.
Right.
Anyway, so she jumps back in the car and she's driving super fast away. And then we kind of get like a super cut of the car crash again that happened, the car crash miss that happened earlier in the movie. And now we get to see that it was actually a real car crash. And then everybody died, and then we see like a bunch of cops like cleaning up the scene. And like you said, that note that he wrote was like one of the things that was cleaned up. I think that happened later, but I'm just adding it here.
Yeah, end credits essentially.
Right. Well, yeah, I'm just adding it here because it doesn't matter. Anyway, and then we cut back to the daughter wakes up in the hospital. And she lived, her baby lives, but everybody else died. So yeah, what happened was the dad fell asleep, did hit the car that was oncoming in the other lane. So everybody in that car died except for her and the baby, and then the other car was a lady and her baby. So this is the lady in white and the baby she was holding. That's why she was a part of that, getting her revenge or whatnot. So anyway, so then we find out that the doctor's name is Dr. Marcotte. So that was like the, psychic visions. That's why they were trying to head towards Marcotte, because Marcotte was the doctor. And then there was the guy who found them. They discredit him as the man in black. He's wearing like an all black suit with like, dyed black hair. And he has a, classic Cadillac station wagon car, the same black car. And he just has it because he's a car collector.
But then he gives Dr. Marcotte a ride.
It didn't seem like it was creepy. It just seemed like it was kind of all these psychic things, fit. That's why all this stuff was like her dreams being in a coma.
Yes.
And it was like all the bits and pieces of the real world around her creeping into her coma dream.
Yes.
But apparently some part of it is real because, again, the people cleaning up the crime scene do find that note that he wrote.
But that was way later after the car crash would have happened. So,
well, yeah, they're cleaning up the car crash, yes. Literally sweeping the glass off the street.
I mean, that only happened. He wrote that note, movie time, like 10 minutes before she wakes up from the coma in the hospital.
Well, yeah. Well, in movie time, technically, this all happened at the same time because the clocks never moved past 7:30. Right. Even though they were driving for 2 hours, the clock still said 7:30. The clock in the car and all of their watches all said 7:30.
Yes.
So it never, like the time never changed. So essentially, they were living in a world without time.
Yes.
Anyway, so that's the end.
Yes. This is definitely my first time watching this movie. I'm pretty sure it was yours as well.
Yeah, no, I haven't seen this one before.
What were your first thoughts on this?
My first thoughts is, I like that concept of it. I mean, basically, I think we talked about it before. I mean, I knew it was happening almost immediately. I'm pretty sure you knew what was happening almost immediately. I mean, I had my suspicions what was happening right after the car crash thing, because it just seemed too convenient to just hammer in there. But right. I knew for sure what was happening when Brad got taken in the car.
Yeah.
And then when they found his dead body on the street, I'm like, right, he looks like that because that's how he looked at the end of the car crash. So like, I knew exactly what was happening at that point. But honestly, I don't think it really took away from it. I mean, even knowing what is going on, like I don't think they were necessarily wanted it to be like a mystery. I think it was just like, like an interesting, like, what's happening, like supernatural kind of thing. Obviously, something supernatural is happening, but again, I thought it was done rather well. Um, I thought it was, again, decent. Um, better. I mean, better than I thought it was going to be. I mean, again, seeing the cast and seeing the trailer, I was like, this is going to be terrible. And it started off a little rough because Richard is extremely annoying.
Yes, he is the basement dwelling pothead conspiracy theorist of 2003.
I don't know about that. He's just
right.
Well,
I mean, that's his portrayal of the character. I feel like
he was just a punk high school kid in 2003.
Yeah,
that's all he was. I don't know about conspiracy theory, but like,
no,
yeah,
because when all the clocks stopped at 7:30, it's like it has to be aliens.
Well, okay, if everybody's clock stops at 7:30, that's a strange coincidence. And I'm sure anybody who's seen movies would think, okay, something weird's going on. What when weird things happen, what is it usually? It's either aliens or supernatural stuff, and he went to aliens. So I don't think he's a conspiracy theorist. I think he's just a kid, a curious kid that watches too much TV, bro.
I mean, for me, as you point out, I think I told you, like, you're going to know within the first 5 or 10 minutes exactly what's going on.
Oh yeah, like I said, I figured it out immediately. But again, as I was watching it, it really didn't take away from it. It's not like the ending was ruined for me. Like I knew where it was going, but it was still interesting enough to where I didn't feel like, I was being forced to watch it all the way through, even knowing what the end was going to be. No, I enjoyed it the whole way.
Yeah, to me, the first thought was it seemed like like the ending weird. Like they thought, to me, the ending seemed like it was supposed to be like a little twist that part of it actually did happen, and maybe how much bled into the real world. I took it as the Man in Black was a supernatural entity, was seen as death, carrying him from purgatory into the afterlife.
Well, of course, yeah. If in the credits you as a character don't have a name and you only have a weird title, then yes, you're probably some form of supernatural thing.
Yes. And to me, it felt like a mix of Goosebumps, or not Goosebumps, Are You Afraid of the Dark meets Tales from the Crypt. So like an adult version of Are You Afraid of the Dark episode, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Like I said, I really think it's because we've watched so many movies that we were able to predict this pretty early. How many times have we seen it? Especially through, I'm going to throw this out there too. If Pinhead showed up at the end, I would not have been surprised. Let's put it that way. It seems like that whole purgatory dream state that we watched during the Hellraiser series, like it could have fit into it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Not any worse than what they did. So,
well, yeah, it's basically on the same level as like the one that had the mayhem guy in it.
Right.
It's about that level, because there was like weird, wacky stuff happening in that one where it was kind of sort of a mystery too. Like I said, I want to put it at about that level, minus the sentiments that were barely in that one anyway.
Right, but I'm saying that's just because we watched so many, especially in that vein, very recently during this podcast, that we were able to see that going into it. And I knew nothing about this movie going into it. I didn't know it was the priest from Psych, who was also in Twin Peaks. I didn't know it was Lynn Shay. I'm like, why does the daughter look so familiar? Well, she was on a couple episodes of Friends.
Yeah, sorry. So, I wouldn't have known that.
And the Man in Black, I know as well. He's played supernatural things on supernatural TV shows. Man in Black, creepy guy.
I've seen him around. He hasn't done anything famous enough to like make him, famous for any particular role, but he's been around.
No, he's that guy.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, I've seen that guy.
Yeah, so I mean, Yeah, the effects and the lack of showing stuff, I could see that both of us thinking, okay, this isn't going to be very good.
I actually like that. I actually like because it's essentially like, okay, they don't have the budget, obviously, to show a big mangled body. So I thought it
Right.
was a kind of a clever way to get around it, where they just like said, have people describe it, people like look at it like, oh Jesus, this is horrible, right? So
Yeah.
they kind of got around the whole like show don't tell by basically showing you that yes, they're reacting to this horrible dead body, but they don't have to show you the horrible dead body to give that feeling to you.
Right.
And again, I thought they did a really good job with that. I mean, we got that with Brad, and then also with Richard. So we don't actually see their body, but we feel how bad that death was by how everybody reacts to it. And
Right.
again, I thought it was decent. Again, you could tell that they probably just didn't have the budget for it, but I don't think it takes away. I actually liked the way that they handled that. I thought they did a decent job.
So would that be a highlight for you then?
Yeah, we get there. I mean, yeah, if you want me to roll into the
Yeah.
highlights.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was definitely one of them. Is I liked how they they don't have to show you the gore. I mean, again, I don't think they were getting around it for ratings reasons. I think there was enough there to make it probably R anyway.
Oh, they were cussing up a storm a
Yeah, I
lot.
mean, well,
in
it
this
was like
movie.
there was nudity, there was like the Playboy centerfold, like even the lady in white got naked at one point in time. Like, yeah, they weren't trying to go for a PG-13 rating, but I think it felt like a budget reason. But the way that they handled it, I thought was very well. So like whoever the director and the special effects guy got together and was like, how can we do this on a little budget? And I thought that they did a good job of getting that gore across without actually showing it to you.
Yeah.
I thought that was good. The second, I want to say that cinematography was pretty decent. Like those kind of wide shots that they were doing, where they showed the car like driving through the forest, like the endless forest. That looked pretty cool. I mean, I liked the way they did that. The way that they did, like in certain scenes, they kind of like sped it up and like skipped it around, like kind of felt like reality was kind of playing around certain events and times. I thought they did pretty good. Those, it got the point across, and I enjoyed it. The music was pretty good. I mean, the first couple of headphone tracks were pretty cringy and not great.
Yeah.
But after you get past those two, like the rest of it, it did a good job of like, at certain points there was just like pure silence that really made you feel that silence, that kind of, weird kind of, pregnant pause between like events when they're just trying to get to places. Like the weird haunting music they were playing at certain times was good. Like when weird stuff was happening, they had that kind of like, I don't necessarily want to say industrial, but like industrial adjacent, to kind of give you that unnerving feeling. I thought like they did a good job with that. That was pretty fun.
I'd say 2003 Industrial is pretty spot on
No,
for that. Well,
again, it's industrial adjacent. It's industrial light.
Okay, industrial horror movie music, because the early 2000s there was a lot of that.
Yeah.
It was almost like the same type of music that was with the Lance Hendrick Hellraiser one. Like, could it be play a Power Man 5000? Maybe.
I don't know. I don't want to go to that direction.
Inspired by, but yeah.
Sure. But yeah, I don't know if I want to quite go that direction. But again, I thought they did a good job with the music. I thought that was fun.
Yeah. Any other highlights?
No, you can go ahead with your highlights unless you want me to roll into low points.
I'll go to my highlights first. Yeah, I really like Lin Shaye, and I really like the guy who plays the dad. I've watched him in a good handful of things.
Ray Wise is his name.
Yes. And I think he does a really good job too. I think they both do a really good job. I don't think Brad or Michael are especially good. I don't think Dar is especially good either, because I watched her. I knew her from Friends, and she was a pretty bad actor in there as well. But this is a horror movie. This is a lower budget horror movie, so I don't expect more from it. But I think for what they did, I think Lin Shaye did a fantastic job playing the off the rails mom.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I think it was really just a chance for her to shine because, like I said, most of the time she's just cameos or not in it for very long. Not that she's in this for very long. And it's the like you said, the hints of things. While we knew what was coming, didn't take away from the tie up at the end. So I think that worked well in their favor as well. That they thought things through. They gave you the hints along the way. Now, did it make sense to like you said, the shotgun and all that stuff? Not necessarily, but overall, decent movie for something that I never heard of that came out 20 years ago.
Yeah, it's fair.
What about your low points, though?
Low points. I'm going to start off with a pumpkin and chocolate pie. That sounds disgusting. Like, I've never heard of that. I've heard of pumpkin pie. I've heard of chocolate pie. I've never heard of a pumpkin and chocolate pie. And she was eating that pie with her bare hands, and it just full on looked like she was just eating a big tray of shit with her bare hands. Yes. It was disgusting. that was super fucking gross. Anyway, other than that, Richard was very, very annoying. And his like nonstop gay jokes were just like very, very off-putting. I think that was just the time period. I understand that was a very common insult around that time period, but it was just off-putting how many there were. But again, Brad, who was the guy that he was giving them to, dies off pretty quick, and then that stops.
Yes,
and then Richard dies not too much longer after that. So again, the annoying stuff ends fairly quickly, but it is pretty annoying in the beginning. So like, there's a little bit of a speed bump in the beginning, but once you get past that, it's pretty good.
Yeah. Okay. So something we didn't mention was, Brad was going to propose to Marion at the Christmas party, and she was going to dump him at the Christmas party, which seems like a really weird place to do it in front of everyone.
Well, I think they were just showing that they were in different places. That's another thing this movie did that was kind of surprising. Is like everybody had kind of like their own little character arc. Mm-hmm. I think the only one that really, well, I mean, of course, Brad didn't because he dies too fast to really have one. Richard, again, doesn't really have the opportunity to, because he's killed off early enough, but you really don't care about him anyway. You just want him to die. But everybody else has like an interesting character arc or things that happen where you're like, kind of surprising to see. So,
well, to that note, I feel like that's kind of a low point because I think at some point in time, what really nailed in the idea that they're in purgatory is the confession of sins, which is a very common thing in these type of movies, right? Secrets come out and stuff like that. I don't think we ever got Brad's or Richard's because they're killed so early. We only get
Brad. Yeah, I think we're supposed to see that his sin is pride because he threatens Richard. And that he's arrogant enough to think that Marion is going to marry him. I guess thin, justification, right. Sure, but I think that was the sin that he was supposed to have. The sin that Richard was supposed to have is lust, because literally, like, he cranks it in the woods. Literally, he can't help himself to literally, rub one out in the woods while on a family move. So yeah, he's supposed to be, lust and just pure like loss of impulse control. So yeah, that those are supposed to be his sins that he's punished for.
But I mean, it's seemingly always that confession, and I feel like sometimes in these movies, especially when we do this, and we kill people off, it's like they didn't have enough material to give it to all the characters.
But the thing is, this wasn't really a purgatory movie. It wasn't like these people were trying to get, absolution to try to go anywhere. Right. This was just like a coma dream that the daughter was having.
So the question is, were all these confessions, did they actually come out, or just things that she knew?
Who knows? They could have been things that she completely made up, because again, nobody knew that the real father of Richard wasn't that dad.
Right.
So, I mean, but again, she might have made that up. Who knows? I mean, there's part of it that's, alluded to be true because the note was found at the accident site. But again, maybe that note was written earlier,
Yeah.
right? And she's just, integrated. Again, it's a coma dream. Who knows
Yes.
what's real and what's not? We don't know.
Yeah. So, all right. So this week we're doing, because it's all woods related stuff, into the woods. We're doing number of lost hikers out of 10. So what number of lost hikers out of 10 would you give this one?
I did like it, and I thought it did a pretty decent job with a lot of stuff. So I'm going to say 7.
7.
7 lost hikers out of 10.
I didn't necessarily particularly enjoy this movie. I mean, it wasn't bad. Like I said, the ending music to me, because I grew up on Are You Afraid of the Dark and Goosebumps. The ending music just seemed very on the nose, on point with that, and for some reason it just didn't work well with me. But I'm gonna go down to a 6. I mean, it's not awful. Am I glad I watched it? Yes. Do I really want to rewatch it? Not necessarily.
All right. So we'll move on to Eden Lake. What year did this movie come out?
2008.
Yeah, so not too much farther.
No.
Yeah, we're still in the age of like cell phones as a mythical beast. Because I think it was
goodness,
like they had this scene where it was like a miracle that he was able to configure his mobile phone with his mapping GPS or whatever.
Yes.
Which was pretty fun.
Yes. So we might as well call these next episodes. Better turn on the subtitles episodes for these movies. Because we get very British very quickly.
You haven't seen enough British movies to know what they're saying by now?
Not in the hoodie phase of the great hoodie scare of Britain that this inspired Eden Lake to be. No.
You need to watch more movies, man.
Yeah.
Or maybe, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I just have an innate skill for decoding accents and what they're trying to say.
Yeah, maybe. So anyway, we get into Eden Lake 2008, stars Michael Fassbender. So this is before he became a common name, I think, in America by far.
Well, okay, Michael Fassbender has always lived in this realm where I really feel like he's just on the verge of becoming like an international superstar. But then like whenever he gets to that point, he makes a really bad movie.
Yes.
And then he falls off. And he's like constantly like he's like waves. He's like almost there, and then he makes a bad movie and it falls again. Like he seems to pick up every movie script that's ever handed to him. And he crushes it. I mean, every movie he's in, he does a fantastic job. But if the movie itself is terrible, it like just falls off. You know what I mean? Again, I've seen him in so many roles that are fucking amazing. And I've seen him in so many bad movies where his acting is great, but the rest of the movie just sucks. But I think he's always constantly lived in that zone where he's like almost like super famous and he never quite gets there.
Yes. He was in Band of Brothers or Saving Private Ryan or both. He's in one war movie that we would have known him before this movie. I'm trying to remember what it was because obviously he's younger Magneto, right? And obviously we know him as Band of Brothers.
Yeah.
Never watched it, so
fantastic.
This would have been his.
You should definitely watch
it. Yeah. So this is. I want to point this out now that next movie. Never mind. So anyway, it's about a boyfriend and girlfriend, Steve and Jenny, who are taking a romantic getaway, to bed and breakfast, essentially, right? Which is the weirdest bed and breakfast I've ever seen.
I think the bed and breakfast was just a stopover.
Stopover.
I think the ultimate goal was they were supposed to go to, the title Eden Lake, which was a flooded quarry, but it was supposed to be like a beautiful camping beach spot.
Yeah.
And I think they were planning on just camping out there.
Yeah.
But
So,
I think the bed and breakfast was the stop before they got there.
yeah. So as Salem pointed out, that he's very proud of himself with the GPS, learning how to get there. And through the interactions, the first 15-ish minutes, we kind of learned that Steve is, I'd say, a pushover. That he's very quiet, he's very outspoken. He doesn't, if someone wrongs him, he just kind of just turns the other way and doesn't stand up for himself. And
yeah, I mean, kind of, but I mean, really, that's like modern life, right?
yeah,
Because I mean, like, I feel like all like the kind of regular people, they do everything they can to avoid confrontation and stuff like that. And really, we only get into confrontation land when like something whatever pushes you over the line. Everybody's got their pet peeves and stuff of things that just get them to that point where adrenaline just starts pumping and they get super angry, or you're just a fucking asshole, right?
right.
Which happens. Some people are just shit people, and then they will force confrontations with people all the time. In the age of the internet, we get to see them all the time. But yeah, I mean, but this is obviously the dawning of people realizing that these people exist everywhere. Not just in any one particular place. These people are, shit, and they're everywhere. And this is like the kind of, I feel like this is the discovery. This is like the internet discovery of like, wow, assholes like this exist everywhere.
Yes.
So I think his reactions are perfectly normal reactions too. If you want to have a peaceful life, you just have to let that shit go, because if he confronts any of those shit people, it's going to be a bad time for him.
Correct.
Because they don't give a shit. They will, literally do everything they can, give up everything that they have just to make you have a bad day.
Yeah.
So there's no winning in that situation.
Yeah. So but that's his main training. We see that because people on bikes cut him off. There's a bartender who doesn't really pay much attention to him. There is the loud, obnoxious child that's at the bed and breakfast, and people shouting. And then Jenny, we get her character trait early on is that she's a nurturing teacher, that she loves kids, seemingly, right?
Right.
So they go. The bed and breakfast is a stopover, and then they go there and they get to the quarry, and it's under construction. And he goes, "Oh, I didn't know this was happening," which you think you would know, but they kind of go through there, and it's supposed to be lake houses built up on Eden Lake. So they see a construction site and a fence, and they find the employee entrance, and they go in there anyway. And they just kind of set up camp. They see, I don't know, a 12-year-old boy kind of doing science project-y stuff out there named Adam.
He was like looking for caterpillars or something.
Yeah. Very, very, very shy. And Jenny wanted to talk to him. She's like, I'm not supposed to talk to strangers. She's like, I know, you're correct. But she just wanted to just talk to him and see if she knew what's going on there, and just being the teacher, right? Approaching the young child cautiously and rightfully so. Eventually they get to the lake, and they start sunbathing in glorious old England, which, overcast all the time.
Yeah, I don't quite understand what they're bathing in or why, but
right. And we see that Steve is planning on proposing to Jenny here. That was the whole point of the getaway. Anyway, they fall asleep. All of a sudden, there's a obnoxious gang of youths that are also at the lake.
Yeah, to put it mildly.
At this point in time, that's all they are. They're being teenagers. We probably would have been in the same way at this point. I would have snuck into a construction site like that, hands down.
Well, okay. If this was me in this situation, Oh, I might have gone around the construction site, right? I mean, like nobody's there. They barely started. You know, if you already know where the beach is and you're whatever, whateve, I'll do that. That's fine. But if I'm like hanging out on the beach and like a bunch of like terrible children show up with like a vicious Rottweiler dog that they let off leash and stuff, I am out. Yes. I am out and I'm not coming back. Like that, no way in hell. I don't care how much of a party I was planning on having there. No way.
Yes, the wife said that she's like, I would just go. I'm like, that's fair. Exactly. I probably would just go.
Exactly. Too. A Rottweiler off leash, like kid, like asshole kids, like blasting music, like throwing trash everywhere. You know, I mean, just being nasty, shitty people. Like they're picking on poor caterpillar kid. You know what I mean? Like they're just not good. And it's just get out. Just get the fuck out. Yeah.
So, they're being disturbing and Steve goes there to say, hey, can you just turn it down? Just turn it down. And he's met with just verbal abuse and threatening with the dog, and the one girl going, "You're staring at my breasts." And I'd say
she
the
doesn't
leader
say
of the
it
gang,
so nicely. Yeah.
No. I cleaned it up a lot.
I know. I'm just saying.
And then they can see that they're looking at his girlfriend, and I'd say the leader pulls out his penis as they walk on by and just whatever, right?
Yeah.
So they, she's like, okay, we gotta get going. Then he whips out his tent, just throws in the air the automatic pop-up tent.
Right. I mean, but okay, what insane person after that whole scene is going to be like, yeah, let's camp out in the exact same spot that we were when this happened?
Yes. Yeah.
What is wrong with you?
Yes. So anyway, they wake up, they go to get breakfast, and they found out that there's insects all over the food. So seemingly that the rowdy youths came back and ruined their food. They went to go to get to town, like, okay, we have to eat, and their car has been punctured. The tire's been punctured with a bottle that they were drinking with. So they go into town. They talk to the waitress there, and she goes, "Oh, those wouldn't be my kids. Those aren't." Just ask about these kids. About this roving gang of kids on bikes. She goes, "No, that's not them." And they're leaving town, and he happens to see their bikes. And what does he do? He decides, he's going out there just to say, "Hey, we need to talk about this. Talk to your parents." And then he proceeds to enter the house. Steve does.
Right. I mean, just like straight away. I mean, like there's not even like hesitation. He's just like, "Oh, look, door's open," and it just walks right in.
The non-confrontational guy just goes into a house in the boonies. Let's call it the boonies of England.
Right.
Right. Dad he starts moving around. The dad essentially comes home, and he has to escape over the roof, out the window, and jump over the fence.
Okay, well, here's what happened. Yeah, the dad shows up at the front door. Instead of running back out the open door he just came in, he goes up upstairs. The stairs. Yes. What is wrong with you?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure maybe he had some chemicals in his water or something. Maybe this is a brain damage situation. He's not making solid decisions
here. No. The one time he decides to be confrontational, he makes the dumbest things.
Yeah.
Ever. Anyway, they leave, they go back to the lake, and I think she takes a nap, and he goes scuba diving. He comes out with scuba equipment, right? From the lake.
Yeah, they don't show him scuba diving, but again, it's a flood
out.
Well, it's a flooded quarry. Flooded quarries are known for being scuba dive hangouts because they're so deep and they're, I guess interesting for scuba people. But yeah, that's what he was doing.
But he all of a sudden he's there's no inclination. It's just 15 seconds of him coming out of the lake with scuba gear.
Yep.
All right. And they find out that all their stuff has been taken out. She must be taking Zach something to be that sound asleep 2 days in a row in the middle of the day.
Well, and again,
know that their shit's been taken.
Okay. Again, I don't understand the logic here. That stuff happened with the kids, right? They still stay the night, right?
Yep.
Obviously, I would have been gone long before that. But again, they stay the night. Okay, even if you're making those bad decisions, when you find out that your tire was slashed, and then you like go into town and find out that like the dad is just as shitty as the kid is, right?
Yep.
And like, okay, like this is just a bad situation. We need to just get the hell out of here. Instead of making that decision, they go back to the same exact spot they were just in. And then he leaves her alone to go scuba diving, which obviously he can't keep an eye on her when he's scuba diving. And then, yeah, she's like, whatever, popping Xannies or whatever it is to like pass out in the same location. Like they're in the same place where all of this stuff already happened. Like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah. Huge ass lake.
I'm not saying that they deserved anything that's happening to them. I'm just saying, like, what are you thinking? Get out.
Yeah. Yeah. So, they're like, oh no, they go to find their car is gone. So then they kind of have to make it back to town on foot, which is decent height.
Yeah, again, they make the genius move of they take one beach bag and they put their car keys, their phones, their wallets, everything that they basically own that's of any value is in this one bag that was then stolen.
Yes. Yeah, so anyway, they make it back to the road, and all of a sudden their car comes barreling at them, breakneck speed. They dive out of the way, and eventually they kind of try to find where the car goes. They go in that general direction, but trying to get there, it's nighttime, and there's a fire, and they find the kids. He's like, hey, we don't want any trouble. Can we just get our car keys, and we'll be out of our way? We'll just forget any of this ever happened. We'll just be on our way. And he's like, no, these are my car keys. And they start going to the cell phone rings. Is that you have the same ringtone as me, mate? Yeah. You wear aviator sunglasses? Yeah. Right? He's like, dude, just give me the keys. We'll just be on our way. You can keep everything else. We don't care. Jenny's urging Steve to just leave everything and just go, which she's right.
Okay, yeah, but she wasn't saying that a minute ago. She's part of the reason why they're there.
Yes. So then they pull out their switchblades and they start threatening him and they attack him, and the dog also joins in on the fun of the attacking, and somehow he's able to angle the knife and kills the dog. Steve does.
Yeah.
Which is their leader, Brett's dog, and he's like, she's dead. Like, I'm sorry, just give me the car keys and we'll be out of here. He again, immediately starts feeling bad for doing so. Like, man, right.
They were using the dog as a weapon. That sucks. But you're defending yourself. I mean, you shouldn't feel bad about that. But whatever.
Right. And we love dogs, and we go, okay. And then
I love dogs, but if somebody is using a dog as a weapon, you cannot fault someone for defending themselves against it.
Correct. It was two guys and a dog, and he was just trying to not get bit or stabbed.
Exactly.
Really.
He didn't start it. It was pure self-defense.
Right. It's like, you guys started it, it's your fault. But, yeah, so he ends up getting the keys, and he gets to the car, and now the gang's mad. They were just fooling around before, right? So they get in the car, they get in the car, they drive away, they get stuck trying to go up a hill for some reason, and the gang shows up, starts throwing rocks at the windows and bashing it. They break all their headlights, they're able to get out of it, and they start driving away. He can't see, he's going stupidly fast through a forest at night with no headlights. And then crash. And then he gets pinned by a tree, and he tells Jenny to leave. He goes 20 feet away, and she gets kind of hides in some covering and wakes up, goes back to the car, and he's missing. There's a trail of clearly body being dragged away with blood. She kind of follows that trail and finds him, that he's been barbed wired up, has the dog leash around his neck, and being tortured, essentially, right?
Yeah.
And
full on torture.
On watching. Yeah. And, the gang leader's like, I caught him, right? And I caught him too. And gets the high quality of 2008 cell phone recordings of the female Paige in the gang to record all the stuff, and he forces everyone else to cut him. Like only one guy was okay with it. Everyone else is like hesitating. He's like forcing their hands to do it. Like, I got all of you on video. We got all of you, so you can't do anything about it. One guy like shoves the what kind of knife do you call that? The packaging knife, the
box
retractable box cutter, into his mouth, and, like twists it. Like they cut him good, stab him in the side, deep. And they're going to be ready to kill him, and she, successfully navigates the smartphone in 2008 where she connects to his.
Now, here is Bluetooth. Where I'm confused as what's happening here. Okay, she has some form of device that, for whatever reason or another, cannot make its own phone call.
Yep,
and she has to connect to his phone through Bluetooth to make a phone call. But the phone call doesn't come through. Yeah, but the phone call does not come through the device she is holding. It's going through the phone itself. Like, what is fucking the point of this? And what is happening? What does she have in her hand?
It's like a remote control app for a cell phone that's not next to you.
Right, but I mean, like, even in 2008, I don't think there was a device that was shaped like a phone that had a screen like a phone that was not a phone.
Other than Palm Pilots.
Well, yeah, Palm Pilots predate 2008.
I know.
So they had those devices, but not at this time period. And like, again, this is supposed to be like a modern thing. Like 2008, they had smartphones. Yes, they were like, primitive by today's standards, but they were still smartphones. Like, what device does she have that can't make its own phone calls but has Bluetooth?
2008, we had Blackberries. Let's face it.
Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no way that this device does not. I don't get that whole scene. Obviously, it would not have mattered anyway, because they could have just explained it away with no signal. Right? They're out in the woods somewhere. They could just say no signal. But then the other people are using phones all the time to call each other. So I don't know. I just don't quite understand what device that is that she has.
Maybe it's a British thing. I have no idea.
I don't know. Maybe.
I was very confused by it too. But yeah, so they find out that she's doing it, and they start chasing her. And then Steve he unties himself.
Yep.
Right. So you can tell that Brett is just an asshole.
Oh yeah. I mean, you can tell he's the leader, and by forcing them all to stab them, like, they're all like, a lot of them are trying to like fight him and say no, and he just like beats them down and just forces them to do it, and they all just go along with it. And you can tell, like, really no one wants to be doing this. Like, no one is okay with it except for him, but they all do it because they're all afraid of him.
Right. And so, essentially they give chase. Steve kind of he kind of arms himself, gets the first aid kit, gets like a hatchet from his car, sets off the alarm. Tire iron? Okay. Yeah. And then he's ready to attack, and like something's coming at him, he swings and barely misses Jenny, and they find each other.
And what does he do?
Drops it.
He leaves the tire iron on the ground. Like, you just had a weapon.
You dropped the knife. Yeah.
You just had a weapon. Why you barely even tried to use it against your own girlfriend, and then you left it on the ground? Like, what is wrong with you?
Yep. He used the weapon. They're disposable weapons. It's only usable once. The pocket knife was only usable once. You had to drop it.
It's like that. Yeah, it's like that video game mechanic that I can't stand, where like a lead pipe breaks after you hit something with it 5 times. Like, have you ever seen a lead pipe? Like, have you ever hit things, like very hard things with a lead pipe? It doesn't even change its shape. It doesn't even ding it.
No.
A lead pipe is a lead pipe. It will not change. You can beat 100 people to death with the lead pipe. It is not going to break. I hate the game mechanic where like ridiculous things that should be, good for the length of the game break inexplicably after like 5 uses.
Right.
Stupid. Anyway, continue.
So anyway, they find like an old boathouse. She tries patching him up, and he's definitely bleeding out from the side.
Yeah,
really
he's like
nasty
full
cut.
on, like in shock with like,
Yeah.
shaking convulsions. Like, yeah, it's not looking good.
Yeah. She tries to shove gauze into his open wound. He proposes. The gang starts
Yeah,
to find that
it's a very
boathouse. They
romantic
go
scene.
into yes. And then if he wasn't dying from the bleed out, he's going to die from infection because they're in the water underneath the boathouse, which is nasty as
Right. Yeah.
hell. But she kind of leaves him there. She's like, okay, I gotta get out, and she tries to find essentially a way to get help. You'll be able to find, and she steps on a spike that just goes through her foot.
Yeah, like all the way through.
Oh yeah, and then she can't pull out through the bottom. So what she do? She pounds on the spike on the log to make it go all the way the rest of the way through her foot.
Yeah.
And then she finds like the foreman's office at the construction site. She can't get in. The gang happens to find her trail pretty well. She nimbly goes up the side of the building when they're on both sides of it, and like, okay, we gotta find her. And then, right, so she's leave there.
Because, Michael Fassbender told her so that he saw power lines at one point in time. So basically, to tell her to go to the power lines and then follow them back to civilization. So that's what she was doing when she stepped on the spike. Is she was trying to follow the power lines because she finally found him, and then she started running, and of course she stepped on the big spike.
Right. So anyway, she's get back, and then she sees Adam, the kid they met earlier. He's like, hey, can I use your cell phone? My mom's going to call me. Its battery's dying. He's making up excuses, and something bad's happening. And you find out that he actually told the gang that where she was. They come and just kick the side of her face, knocking her out. And she wakes up tied to now Steve's dead body and dumping gasoline onto them. And they're like, all right, we're going to do this. You gotta light it. And we gotta record it too. Paige, get your phone out again. I gotta record it. And he's forced. No one wants to do it. So he forces Adam to do it. Holds it, lights it, and Steve's body starts burning. But since they use the same rope to tie them together, as the fire's burning the rope, she's able to escape. And so she dumps gasoline, lights it, get a flame up, runs away. Steve's body's still burning, and she gets a little bit away, and they see Brett douse Adam in the gasoline and sets him on fire.
Yeah, so he basically says, if you don't come back, I'm going to kill this kid. And she just keeps running, so he literally lights the poor kid on fire.
Which was against her character because she desperately wanted to go and save him. You could see it in her eyes that she didn't want to do it.
The one thing that
fight for her life.
Right. The one thing that I thought was hilarious is like, okay, if you take a big, huge pile of sticks and you coat the whole thing in gasoline and you throw a match at it, is there any part of that pile of stick that doesn't immediately go up where the gas had touched? No. It immediately goes up. It like spreads immediately. They show specifically them dumping gasoline on her.
Yes.
She's right next to Steve. When they throw the match, Steve goes up and she does not. Which, again, is like, this is against physics unless she has, like some kind of like, well, I obviously she has miracle plot armor on, but like somehow the gas that's on her was too watered down to go up when they threw a match at her.
Yeah. So anyway, she's going back. She finds the old trail map that exists at the park from the old. She breaks open the glass, finds it. She writes a note saying, they killed Steve and Adam and help. She hears them coming and she hides in essentially the shit house garbage can. Yeah, and she dives fully into it because they think that he's gonna find it. They find the note. She gets out. She, rips off a little bit of her sundress, gets a piece of glass, and one of the kids sees her that was having major issues, that even threw up after, he just gently cut Steve, and that caused him to have issues. She's like, ma'am, and then she turned around and just stabbed him right in the throat. And then she realizes it's one of the kids that didn't want to do it. She could tell that Brett is the leader, and most of these other kids are being forced into it.
Yeah,
And
but I mean, okay. At this point, she is like terrified. They just tried to kill her, and this guy was letting it happen. Okay, they let it happen. They let the torture happen to her fiance. They let the possible murder of her, the murder of that kid that they lit on fire, and now this kid is going to try to be nice.
They're all guilty,
right? In her mind, I do not blame her one fucking bit for reacting the way that she did. No, she has been treated absolutely horribly at this point. I mean, yeah, we're supposed to like feel bad for that kid, but I honestly don't. Like,
she's still
you're going along with it. I mean, yeah, she can feel bad about it afterwards, but yeah, seriously, in the situation that she was in, I don't blame her.
But she holds him as he dies, though.
Yeah, he does.
Still feels bad. She didn't want to do it. But anyway, she kind of continues, make it along through the using the map. Like, we know where she's going because she's using these trails. We know these trails. They find the body because there's like a really loud scream. I thought it was her at first, but no, it was one of the other boys that were in the gang. Brett shows up. Paige is there. It's like, oh man, and then one of the guys like, we're done. We gotta stop this. Like, you see these pictures, you see these videos. You're on here too. No, he's trying to stand up to him, and he gets beat to death by Brett.
Yep.
And then Paige, the young lady of the group, runs because this guy's clearly off the rails, right? She hasn't had to do anything other than record stuff, which is still hard, but she's still very complacent,
right?
But now she realizes that Brett is just completely batshit insane, because now he knows, okay, I killed a kid, I killed another kid, I killed a guy, and tried killing this woman who's escaping. I am screwed when they find out,
right?
So anyway, yeah. So Jennings finds a road, and then she's picked up by a guy in a car, and he's looking for his little brother, and his little brother happens to be the boy that she killed. She's like, no, I called the cell phone. He's right here. I'm just looking for him, and he drives her back to Eden Lake after she worked so hard to get away.
Mm-hmm.
He gets out of the car, and he's talking to him, and she's like, screw this, takes the car and just starts driving away. And I don't blame her in the least bit.
Right. Yeah, I don't blame her for this next part either. I would do the same thing.
No. So yeah, she's driving away, and then she essentially gets hit and ends up going into a backyard.
Well, not yet. No. Paige jumps out. Paige that had run away before. She jumps out, and instead of slowing down or trying to go around her, she steps on the gas and just takes her out, which, again, I don't blame her one fucking bit. Because last time they were in a car trying to get away, they were all throwing rocks and shit and jumping on the hood and trying to get up. Yeah, I don't blame her one bit for doing that.
Well, she doesn't know that Paige ran away and it was going.
Well, no, she doesn't know. Yeah, so she doesn't know that at all. But again, I don't blame her for, just mowing her down, like, get the fuck out of my way. Right.
Right. Yeah, then she gets back into the town, gets hit by a car because she's very afraid, and I don't blame her in the least bit.
Right.
It goes into, like, it seems like a British key party. I couldn't tell those people were supposed to be naked in that
I know.
building.
I think it was like one of those like temporary backyard pools, but I think it was full of foam. I think they were having like a foam party or something. But yeah, they had like a full on stage.
I have no idea.
They had a full on like stage with like lights and shit. Like, it looked like a hell of a party was going on.
Yeah. So anyway, she kind of collapses. She's saying, "Help me." They start cleaning her up, and she starts looking. She kind of gets to, and she starts looking around, and the adults look kind of familiar, right? Like, I'd say one woman looks exactly like Paige.
Right.
And then she finds out that she is in Brett's house. And she sees that, there's another Rottweiler, and Bonnie was the one that was killed. And there's Clyde, and sees pictures of Brett, And she's like, oh, shit.
But here's the thing I don't understand. She was in the car right outside of that house.
Yes.
Right? She was in the car right outside of that house to the point where the dude came home and she had to move their car out of his driveway to let him in the driveway. Like, she knew what the house looked like. Why would she run into the same house knowing that's the house?
Great question.
I mean, again, like, if she wasn't a part of that scene, I could get it. But no, she was a part of that scene. She looked at the house. Like, if you've looked at a house, you can tell if you look at the same house the next day.
I mean, she's clearly not in the greatest mental
state. I know. I'm not, pure judgment on her, but I'm like, dear God, don't run into the first house you come across if it's the same house that you were just in front of yesterday.
Right. So she's like, I'm gonna be sick. She locks herself in the bathroom. She can't get out because it's the windowless glass pane blocks bathroom.
Right. Yeah. Like,
and also she hears phone calls and commotions. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Phone calls and realizing that parents have been called. These are all the parents of all the kids from the gang, and now they know that some kids have died, and they start trying to break into the bathroom to get her. She arms herself with a shaving blade, right? And straight razor, yeah. And they break in. She's like, "Okay, stop. We got this." She's like, he killed them because Brett's there. No, he didn't. Convinced, and then his dad is the same type of person that Brett is, and convinces the other parents, just like Brett convinced the other kids, to listen to him, and what he says goes. And he tells Brett to go into his room. We got this. He has a hold of her, and two other guys go into the bathroom. Door closes. She's screaming. Brett looks himself in the mirror and puts his aviator shades back on. The end.
Yep.
First thoughts for me was I've heard a lot about this movie, unfortunately, because I watch What Culture Horror a lot, and this movie comes up a lot. Now, I didn't realize everything that happened in this movie, so it's still new to me. Like, I had no idea they burned a kid alive. No clue.
Yeah, no, I had seen this
but
movie
this was
before. I watched it a few years back.
Okay. But this is my first time, and this is like I Spit on Your Grave, or Last House on the Left, but British in 2008. It very much is that feel.
That was the one thing. Like, again, like those movies, I was waiting for a fucking like cringy rape scene. I was like, please don't. Don't. I don't want to see this. I will get so upset, like children like raping a grown woman. Like, no, please don't. And thankfully they did not. But it still felt just as bad. Like, I mean, the end result of this still feels just as bad. But I was really hoping that they wouldn't have a weird rape scene, and thankfully they did not. But yeah, it really has the same vibe as those movies. It really does.
It felt just like I was watching something from like 1974.
Yeah,
but 34 years made later.
Right.
I mean, like I said, I did some little bit of research, and it's the idea of, because do you remember the hoodie thing? It didn't really happen in America, but do you remember hearing about that in England, about the hoodie gangs? And that's why they had the hoodie gangs in Hot Fuzz.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that was the hoodie gangs, and then there was the whole soccer hooligan thing.
Broken Britain. Yeah. Right. So that was, this, for being that, this was a great social commentary into a part of a different country, part of the world that we don't necessarily hear a lot about, but we knew enough about it, and to see what their fears were and to put into a movie, just like we're used to seeing it in our products of our time in American horror movies. And I thought it was great to see that in a different culture done.
Right.
So, what was your first thought, and what was your thoughts on the rewatch then for this?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I read an article a while back. This is a few years back. I'm pretty sure it was right after I watched Britannia. Did you ever watch that show?
No.
Anyway, Mary Riley, Jenny, is in that movie, and so is the governor from The Walking Dead. But anyway, it was an okay show. It was decent. And then I read an article not long after that talking about Eden Lake. Because there's like always articles talking about Eden Lake. People talk about it a lot. And I was like, okay,
there's a lot of them.
Right. And I'm like, okay, Mary Riley, I just saw her in Britannia. I like that a lot. Like, okay, I'll watch this. And I watched it. And yeah, it was, again, that was the whole time when I was watching it the first time, like, please don't have a rape scene. I don't want to, I don't want to watch this. Cause, I remember watching, Spit in Your Grave and Last House on the Left and just, that despair you feel watching that stuff. I really didn't want to feel that again,
yes.
but, I mean, it's a great movie. I mean, it's disturbing at times, but it is a very well made movie. The rewatch, basically nothing was lost. It was still basically the same feelings I had the first time, even though I knew what was going to happen. It still doesn't stop the tension and the pacing from getting to you. It's just that well crafted of a story that it doesn't, even if you've seen it before, it really doesn't matter. It still feels the same.
Well, I mean, I think I think it says something for us to be kind of disturbed by movies, right? We watch a lot of movies, but this is like gritty, it's grimy, and like I said, something that would have been not out of place would have been a rape scene, but still just an unnerving movie. Like, we can see people explode in body horror to no end. Generally, we don't have issues with that, but there's something unnerving about this type of story, right?
Yeah, those are probably those are usually the worst ones to me. Yeah, and the ending is like infuriating. The ending makes you angry.
Yes, it's a bad ending, and you want Brett to get his head bashed in with a rock,
right?
You really did. And the only people that got killed are the ones that were the most hesitant.
Right, yeah. The ones that stood up to Brett were the ones that got killed. And those are like the ones that should not have. Yeah, it's like all around. It's like just a disheartening, bad, sad, anger-filled ending. It's like, what the hell happened?
Right. Yeah.
But again, I love those endings where it's like you do not expect that to happen at all. You kind of sort of see the these being the parents of the kids kind of telegraphed, right? But like her not being able to get away and ultimately, being ended by them, and then nothing gets resolved. You don't see that part.
Correct. Yeah. So let's get into the highlights then. I think overall acting phenomenal. I really felt like Brett was a slime bag.
Well, yeah, I'd say that's also my highlight is all around the acting was great. I mean, like Michael Fassbender, Mary Riley, fantastic. I mean, all the kids, just anger you at times, both with how shitty they can be and then how stupid they are, but again, they always come off as this is possible, right? Like kids can fall into this. They're very, I guess, realistic in that portrayal of like, this really could happen. Like one bad person who's like abused by their father, and then takes it out on everybody else by being this like just asshole, shitty person, like can really make stuff like this happen. And it sucks and it's terrifying and but overall everybody did a fantastic job. Great job. Like even like the NPC type characters are great. Like there's no like, I'd say that the worst actor of the bunch is maybe the brother that's driving the car. Like he's a little dopey and not great, and that's about it. That's like really the lowest as it gets. Everybody else is phenomenal.
Yeah, and it another highlight is it felt so real. It felt brutal. Like it felt like you were watching someone get cut and tortured. Like it felt that visceral, that tension, that everything goes with these type of movies.
Right. Yeah. And
it's
bad.
Really, really well to unnerve you.
Right.
But that's a highlight because it's hard to pull off well. Right. I mean, some people try to be edgy and stuff like that, and it doesn't work. But they nailed it.
Yeah, they really did. And that's my other highlight is I would just say specifically the pacing of this movie is great. It is
Yes.
it starts off that little bit of lead time where even in the lead time, there's still unnerving stuff. Like, the lady slapping her kid, like in full view of everyone else is like, okay, it gives you a little bit of foreshadowing as to where this is going. But like, it's, slow starts to where they got a little bit of problems with the kids and then they're trying to have fun and then they got problems and then have fun. But like once it really starts going, it does not stop. It
No.
does not stop at all. It is like, full gas all the way through to the end. And it just does not let up. It's just horrible thing after horrible thing after horrible thing. And it's great. And then it ends in that, horrible way where you're still like just angry about the whole thing happening. But this,
Yeah.
a great story overall.
Yeah. What about low points for you though?
Low points. They use the puking scene way too many times. Okay. Somebody does something bad and then they throw up about it. Like they do that scene like 4 or 5 times in this movie. Like I get it. Like they
Yes.
don't like what they do. There are other ways to show it other than showing them throw up immediately after they do it. Like they do that constantly and it's overdone. But whatever, that's it. And the other thing is, man, that dumpster was so gross. I mean, like she opened the top and it was like 3/4 of the way full with like greasy, slimy sludge stuff. So like, it was old, like rotten, nasty food and human and animal waste and probably, and she's just covered it.
Yeah.
She just covered it. Like after she gets in it, like she does not recover from that. She's just covered through the whole rest of that movie. Oh, so gross. And then, like even when she's laying down on the couch at the end, it's like there's stains all over that couch.
Oh yeah.
So gross.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the confusing technology that we don't seem to understand, and we know technology, is a low point. And yeah, I mean, I understand that the movie has to happen, but get out, like leave. I wouldn't stand for it. You wouldn't stand for it.
Yeah. Again, like there's no way after that happened the first time, especially after they had that confrontation and those kids acted so badly, like you just need to get away. I mean, when people show you their quality like that, just get the hell away from them. Because if they're already being that shitty and they don't even know you, just get away, man. Nothing good is going to come out of that. Bad things are going to happen. Do not stay in a place where they know where you are. Just get out. Go to another beach somewhere, go back home, whatever you got to do. Just get away from it. It's not worth it. And they basically pushed past that point, like what, 3 times? To where like they should have left and they just kept being stupid. Like, 3, I probably even more than that. But like, I don't know. I don't know what the hell they were thinking. Like when their car got stolen, they should have just went to the police,
Yep.
Simple as that. Yeah. They walked, I mean, just get back to town, go to the cops. I mean, worst case, you report your car stolen, even if they don't find it, insurance will give you money for it.
Yep. And then my little point is I agree. You can not show people throwing up in movies. That could stop as a trend. We can just hear it and understand what's going on. We don't need to see it every single time.
Well, again, I get the point, but it's like there are other ways to show that people are sickened by what's happening around them. It's like that was the only way the guy, like, okay, he's sickened by what he knows. Throw up. Like everybody does the same move, and it's like, okay, come on.
Yeah.
Like you're doing great in everything else. Come up with another move.
Yeah. Okay. Any other low points?
No.
You want to get to how many Lost Hikers we got?
Go for Lost Hikers, buddy. It's all you.
Yeah, I'll go first. This was, like I said, I knew a little bit about this movie. I wish I watched it sooner, quite honestly. So this would have been like, a rewatch for me, but overall, just it's a solid ass movie. It really, really is. And I understand why so many people talk about it. Like, I really do. I'm giving it a 9 Lost Hikers out of 10. How about you?
I'm close. Again, I watched it before, but I didn't remember that I watched it until I turned the movie on. And I was like, oh, I have seen this before. Like, I like as soon as I saw Mary Riley teaching the class, which is the first opening scene, I'm like, I've seen this before. And then I remembered.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did not even really remember until that point. But no, I would agree. It's a great movie. It's a fantastic movie. I will go 8.5. 8.5 Lost Hikers out of 10.
8.5.
Yeah.
Yeah, solid movie.
Yeah, no, yeah, definitely up there. Definitely a quality movie, quality watch. I thank whoever made it for not having a rape scene.
Yes,
that's good because it really felt like this is the kind of movie that they're gonna do that with, especially when you're the first time I watched it and you see his dick out in that scene. You're like, oh, this is not gonna go well. This is not gonna go well.
Correct.
And then thankfully it did not go that direction. But yeah, movie fantastic. Okay, so our third and final movie is The Ritual, which I believe is fairly recent. I think it was 2017.
17.
Yeah.
Yep.
And yeah, and I remember I watched it right when it first came out because I mean there was kind of a bigger fanfare.
So did I.
Yeah, it was kind of pushed. The marketing was pushed for it enough, but it was solid.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, you want me to start, or do you want to start?
Yep. Yeah, we'll tag team it. You can start. I'll
okay. So yeah, essentially we open up in a bar, and a group of 5 friends are all kind of arguing over where they're going to go for their boys trip, I guess, right?
Yeah, they're all friends from college,
right? Yeah. So apparently they go on a boys trip every year, and they're trying to figure out where they should go. So they're tossing out ideas of what is it? Ibiza, and then Vegas, and all these different kind of places. Right.
Or
Tuscany,
Bulgaria.
Yeah, right. Or Belgium. Right. There's all these
no one goes to Belgium on purpose.
Right. Yeah. So they're throwing out all these ideas. And then the one guy throws out this idea of oh yeah, there's this hiking trail, between Sweden and Norway, which is kind of like the, European Appalachian Trail. And everybody's like, no, right? No one is on board with that except for this one guy. So then they show him after at the end of the night, they're all walking down the street and they're discussing it a little more. They're like, what is this? How did you hear about it? Kind of thing. And then eventually the one guy goes, Luke is his name. He goes, yeah, I need a bottle. I'm not done drinking for tonight. I'm going to go into this liquor store and get a bottle of something. He's like, you guys want anything? You guys want to come with? And everybody's like, no. But then the one guy, the trail guy, is like, whatever, I'll go with you.
Yep.
So yeah, they go into the liquor store. He pulls a bottle of vodka, and then as they're kind of standing there talking, they look over and they see the clerk, the counter clerk, is obviously been injured and is laying on the ground, behind the counter.
Hostage situation,
right? Yeah, and they're like, oh no. And so then they see 2 guys obviously robbing the place burst out of the back room, with this other guy kind of knocking them around. And then the guy Luke with the bottle runs and hides on the other side of the shelf, and the other guy, the trail guy, just kind of stands there shocked. And so the robbers walk up to him and they're like, don't move, give me your wallet. And so he hands him, the wallet, and he's like, what else you got? He's like, oh, I got this watch. He gives him the watch and he's like, all right, what else you got? He's like, oh, you got what about that ring? He's like, that's my wedding ring. I can't give you that. He's like, give me the fucking ring. And he basically just says, no. He kind of looks back at Luke, Luke just kind of just stays hidden. And then he just gets smashed in the face by a pipe.
Oh, he gets brained.
Yeah. I mean, it's if he gets smashed in the face with this pipe and he just goes down hard. And then you see him get up and he looks up a little bit at Luke and then he just gets smashed again in the head. And you can tell that one was fatal. There is blood everywhere. It's bad. So the guy just,
he dead.
Yeah, he's dead. He pulls the ring off, whatever. And then essentially, we cut to 6 months later, to where the remaining 4 guys are on the Sweden-Norway trail, basically doing a memorial walk for this guy who had died as a result of that.
Yep. They have a picture there. They have a teddy bear. They stack rocks.
Right. Yeah, they make a little memorial and have a little moment to commemorate him.
Past the flask, and then the flask that holds way too much liquid.
Right. Yeah. That scene was like too long. I'm like, come on, man. We don't need to watch the whole thing. But anyway, yeah, they basically decide to go on that trip that he suggested in kind of like his memory, right? So they do that, and then now they just got to follow this trail all the way back to the town. And as they're walking, the one guy, Dom, who's kind of like the bigger complainer of the group, he like twists his ankle, and he immediately tells him like, "Oh, we have to stop. I can't go. Like, we're not going to be able to do this anymore." And they're in the middle of nowhere. There's nowhere else to go. They have to walk.
Well, it does seem like an ankle twist, but it's his knee that gets really messed up.
Right. Yeah, they kind of it kind of changes as time.
Hell?
Yeah, it changes as time goes on as to what the injury is. But anyway, he has a leg injury, a lower leg injury. How about that? But yeah,
yes.
So yeah, he basically says like, yeah, I can't go anywhere. Like, we need to figure something out. And so then Luke and Hutch, who are the kind of like the two like leader guys, they pull aside and they're like, okay, what can we do? And Hutch is like, oh, well, I was looking at the map, and see where the trail goes is like this big loop around, around the mountain. And if we just cut straight through this forest, we can get straight to the town by the end of the day. Of course, right? Yeah, shortcuts.
Yeah, I think the hike back to the inn was like they said like 8 hours,
right?
And because they're talking about like, oh, we'll just leave them here. They have food. We'll go get help, which would have been, a smart thing to do,
probably. But yeah.
Let's go through these woods.
Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, guy with the ankle/knee injury hears about this and is like, yeah, if there's a shorter way, we need to take it. Let's go. Whatever we need to get out of here as fast as possible, kind of thing. And so like, okay, I guess we'll just start walking through the woods. So they start walking through the woods. And eventually it starts raining real bad. It's nighttime. They need to find shelter. So when they find like this little cabin in the middle of the woods, on the way to the cabin, they see like a couple of like symbols carved in trees, which is odd. But
Ruins.
Nothing too scary at that point in time. So yeah, anyway, they find this cabin. It's raining really hard. They're like, okay, we got to break in this cabin. We got to stay somewhere. So they break in the cabin. It's like an old cabin. Like there's literally like a musket hanging on the wall, like that old.
Yeah.
So they're like, okay, like this is fine. It's leaky, whatever, but it's better than staying outside. We'll just camp out in here. And as they're checking around, the one guy goes upstairs and there's like this weird, like shrine with like a kind of like a scarecrow looking thing with like, it's got no head and it's got antlers for hands. And it's got like,
it's like a wicker feet. It's like a wicker man made out of twigs, but
right.
No head.
Yeah. Like I said, yeah, chicken feet, no head, antler arms. Yeah, it's not good. And so of course everybody's like, yeah, we're not sleeping up here. We're gonna sleep downstairs. We'll leave first thing in the morning. So they all go to sleep. Luke wakes up in the middle of the night and he opens the front door of the cabin and it's literally the liquor store from the beginning of the movie. And he walks in there.
Hold. Yeah. Before that, while they're figuring out how to start the fire, Luke was looking out the broken window, and he kept seeing what he thought was movement outside.
Yeah,
so he was seeing things in the woods.
Right. Movement, and the like obviously sounded like something was out there, but nobody else saw or heard anything.
And he had seen something moving while they're moving in before they got in there, and no one's like, no, there's animals. Do you think we're the only animals out here? Right. They're not wrong.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So he like wanders out into the liquor store. And it's kind of like, it's interesting because like the floor is still like the forest floor, but there's the lights and the racks and aisles and everything are just like the liquor store was. So he goes out there and it's kind of like a little recreation of what happened before. And then he essentially wakes up outside. It's now daylight and he's outside in the forest and he's got like these 5 like puncture holes in his chest. He's like,
it's Kalima.
Right. Yeah. It looks like, it looks like a hand it's like stuck their fingers and stabbed him in the chest like that. And so
like,
he runs.
It really looked like the guy was trying to pull his heart out from Indiana Jones.
Right. Yeah, so he's obviously like, okay, this wound is weird. And then he runs back in the cabin and like everybody's messed up. Like Hutch, like he like shakes Hutch awake and Hutch like comes out of like this bizarre nightmare, and he has like pissed himself, and he's like very shaken. He goes and sees Dom. Dom is like screaming his wife's name, and he like shakes him out of it, and he is just like out of it. He's just like totally terrified, but he doesn't know why. Then he goes all the way upstairs, and he sees that Phil, who's the other guy, is stripped completely naked and is praying in front of the Scarecrow Man.
Yeah.
And so he wakes him up, and Phil has no idea why he's there or why he's doing that. He wasn't awake. He was literally like sleep praying, I guess you could say.
Yes.
So he's like very disturbed, like, okay, this is wrong. So everybody like packs up all their stuff as fast as they can and gets out of there. Luke is trying to like discuss like what happened, like what did you guys see? I'm probably trying to fish to see if they saw similar stuff, but nobody wants to talk about it. Like everybody is too scared, and one guy pissed himself, the other guy too scared, the other guy is too disturbed by like, I stripped naked and prayed in front of a weird god, like something is like, I don't want to talk about this at all. I don't even want to remember that it happened, which is fair.
And something we should point out too is before they get to the cabin, they see an elk hanging like 15 feet in the air.
Oh, sure.
It's been gutted.
Yeah. It's been like ripped open, and the blood is dripping to the point where this is fresh. This happened recently.
Fresh.
Right.
And they're like, is it a bear? I'm like, bears don't do that. Large cats do. Well, large cats don't exist in this part of the world. Right. Bears don't hang their kills from a tree 15 feet in the air. Big cats do. Bears don't. Just throwing it out there. But I mention this because this does come into play later, obviously.
Well, yeah. Well, it starts a pattern, So essentially they're walking. Dom finds like this kind of like a path, right? And he's like, I'm going to follow this path. Path means civilization. I'm going this way. And he's like, well, the compass, the map says we should go this way. This is the way to the place. And he's like, I don't care. I'm following the path. Path of civilization. You can follow me or not. So even though the path is going in the wrong way, they're still following the path because it is a path. So they're walking down the path. It becomes obvious that Dom again needs to take a break, and they're like, we're not making good time. Like we're not going to get out of here ever if we keep at this pace. We need to figure out a plan.
Been like a day and a half at this
right.
point.
Yeah, they have like kind of like not yet. Anyway, so Luke goes to the top of the ridge to see what he can see, right? And he gets to the top of the ridge and he sees nothing but more trees. There's just trees everywhere. But then he sees something strange and he kind of focuses in. The camera kind of focuses in, and it looks like what looks like a hand, like holding onto one of the trees. You're like, oh, that's kind of strange. And then you see the hand pull back, like it obviously was a hand and something was there. And then you see something like big kind of move behind the trees, but the trees are so dense you can't really see anything. You just see that there is movement.
Yeah, this is like Black Forest level thickness, of trees.
It's extremely thick. So anyway, Luke freaks out. He runs down. He tells everybody, "Okay, something is out there. Something big is there. We need to get moving. We need to get the hell out of here." Then a big kind of fallout happens between Luke and everybody else, to where basically they all kind of come out and tell them that they blame Luke for their friend Robert. Robert is his name, but he's the guy that had this plan for this hike. That they all kind of blame him for the death because he walked out of that liquor store without any injuries or any blood on him at all. Which means he was just a coward.
You had no blood on you. Yeah.
Right.
He didn't even try to stop it.
Right. So there basically it comes out that even Hutch, the guy who he thought was on his side, also kind of says like, yeah, I get it. That's kind of what I'm thinking too, which kind of sucks. So anyway, Luke is just like, whatever. So he just starts walking down the path. They all follow him. So they keep moving. They find a little, kind of like what looks like an old camp, but like a really, really old camp. And they pull up, it looks like some fabric, and they pull it up, and it was like an old tent. And they find an old backpack inside, and inside was a wallet. And the wallet came from like 1984.
That's when the credit card expired, which credit cards expire a couple years in advance.
Well, whatever.
So it'd even be there before.
It's old. Yeah. It's in the early 80s. It's been there a long time. So they're like, okay, well, like, this is odd. It looks like other people were out here, and obviously they don't, their shoes were there, their tent was there, their wallet was there. Like, what happened to them, right? just adding
Yep.
more mystery to it. So they're walking through, and they basically get to, as far as they can. They set up camp for the night. And again, he has another nightmare about the liquor store. This time, Robert actually gets up and calls him, or no, yeah. Well, I don't know if he calls him a coward or if the guy who killed him calls him a coward. Whatever, they call him a coward. And then he wakes up to the sound of screaming, and he opens up his tent flap, and Phil is there screaming. And you look at Hutch's tent, and Hutch's tent is just shredded apart. So they wake up Dom. Dom is like, all like super shocked. He's not looking too great. But anyway, they hear Hutch like screaming out in the forest. So they basically all kind of gather up and they go looking for him. And they essentially get lost. Like they think they know where they are, but they get lost. They can't find their way back. But they do find Hutch, and Hutch has been gutted and hung from the tree just like the elk was.
Right, and that's why we had to mention it earlier, just because. Okay, you're going, that's definitely not a bear. There's
right.
That's when they start going, there's people.
Right. Yeah. Well, they find like a little pond with like footprints and shit. Like, they're like, there's obviously something, people are happening around. So they continue, keep walking down this trail because they have nothing else to do, essentially. And basically it gets nighttime. Kind of another attack happens to where Phil gets grabbed and dragged off into the forest. And then
his flashlight or torch just going insane through, like rapidly going through the forest and just being like tossed around, it seems like.
Right. Yeah. So Luke has another kind of like liquor store hallucination, and when he comes back, he picks up Phil's flashlight. He can't find him. He's looking around for Dom. He eventually finds Dom like hiding, like ducking down behind a tree.
Yeah. Like a thatch area.
Right. Yeah. So they're like hiding. They're like panicking. Like they don't know what to do. Where should we go? What should we do? And basically like, we got to run. Like, I'll help you, but we got to run. We got to get out of here. Like there's no way we're going to survive this unless we run.
GTFO.
Right. Yeah. So they grab it, he grabs him. They're like running and limping along. They end up finding another path, and this time it has like lit torches along the path. So like this is obviously like people are around. So they run in the direction.
Not a bear.
Right. Bears can't light torches. So they find like a house at the end of this path. They run, they charge into the house. And we get to see this bizarre kind of upside down view of the house. So where it looks like there's like an old lady like kneeling and praying, and then they see like some kind of like weird moccasined feet, and then the feet kick, and then they're blacked out.
Oh, kick hard.
Yeah, well, yeah, whatever. Yeah, they get knocked out, and Luke wakes up again, and now him and Dom are kind of stripped down, and chained to the wall of like this kind of like log cabin looking thing.
Yes.
Yeah, so they're like trying to figure out what's going on. They're trying to like figure out a way out. And then some people come in, like some really grimy looking people come in. And they essentially go ahead. Were you to say something?
I said, surprise. If this was the Appalachian Trail, as they mentioned, they would have been playing banjos.
Yeah. Well, the one bald guy looks like he's straight out of The Hills Have Eyes. Like that guy. I mean, I don't know if they were going for that look, but he looks almost exactly. He looks like the Swedish version of that guy. And there's like, this old lady with like the big crazy, witch hair, with like all the beads and stuff all over her. And anyway, she goes over to Luke and she sees that he has the mark on his chest, the 5-finger mark.
Yep.
She pulls down her shirt to show that she's got the same mark, and he sees that the other people in the room also have that same mark. But Dom does not. And so they basically go over to him, or no, she offers Luke water, but she doesn't give Dom any water. And then when she leaves the room, they just start like beating the crap out of Dom, and then they drag him out. And they basically, they drag him upstairs, and it sounds like they're having like a really weird, I don't know, party ritual. I mean, something up there.
He's screaming.
Yeah.
At this point in time, the first time I saw it, I thought for sure Dom was dead.
Right. Yeah. I'm like, I don't know. Well, especially because this one lady comes in, and this lady speaks English. The other people were talking, and I don't know what they were saying, but it was obviously some language that's not English.
Well, and they didn't know it either. And I like the fact that they left it very no translation. If you don't know the language, you don't know what they're saying.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna guess it's probably like old Swedish, but whatever.
Yeah.
So
or Druic.
Yeah. So like this lady comes in. She's like a younger like woman, probably about the same age as Luke ish. And she comes in and she like holds her hands over his ears because his hands are tied behind his back, and she basically says like, "Oh, they're preparing him for the sacrifice. It'll be over in a minute." Which means like at that point I'm
so
like,
she's
oh, yeah.
sheltering him,
right?
Yeah,
like okay, like yeah, that's why you say like yeah, Dom's probably dead because sacrifice is not a good word, especially in this situation. But eventually Dom does come back. Yeah, he looks like they get the crap beat out of him, but he's alive. And so yeah, they're basically like trying to figure out what to do. Dom is basically like, yeah, I know I'm gonna die. The dream that I had while I was screaming my wife's name is I saw this place. I saw these people, I saw this place, and they offered me up as some kind of sacrifice, and my wife showed up. And I was screaming for her help, and that's when you woke me up. So like he has no hope that he's gonna die. He basically says, Luke, just promise me that you'll tell my wife I did everything I could. And then he gets taken away. And then that basically gets brought out in front. Luke has managed to make a little hole out of the side of the cabin so he can kind of look out and see what's happening. And essentially they have like this big, huge, sacrificial pole that they tie Dom to. And then they all like, kind of kneel down, like waiting for something to show up, and we start hearing the same sounds, the same giant wood sounds of whatever the monster
and, like,
was earlier.
The big ass trees moving around, like
right.
It seems massive to be able to move the limbs of those trees pretty high up.
Right. Yeah. So like Luke at this point is trying to get out. He does manage to get one hand out of the ropes by like breaking his own thumb or something. I don't know what the hell he was doing. But then
the way he broke his thumb, I don't know how he was slipped out. But
right, yeah, he broke his thumb. Then he got one hand out, but he couldn't get the other hand out. I was like, I don't know, why would you do that? Why would you go that far if you can't get both hands out anyway? Anyway, so he's watching this happen through the thing, and anyway, when the thing comes out of the trees, it is his wife. It is his wife, Gail. And it kind of walks closer and closer to him, and he's like, "Oh, Gail, you got to help me, get me out of here." But as Gail gets really close, as Gail gets really close, you can see that her eyes are a little off. Like they got like this weird, like kind of glassy sheen to them. And then he kind of realizes what's happening, and it's like it's like a weird, like flesh hooded, like a Jawa, I guess. It's like a black face with like glowing eyes, but it looks like it's got a hood, but the hood is like made of flesh, and it's got like hands that are holding his face. We don't get to see the whole picture of it yet.
Did you think it was holding his face? Because it looked like it was in his skin.
Well, I think it was just rubbing over his face, but there's so much blood on his face, I think, that it looked.
Okay.
But I think it was just rubbing around his face. Anyway, and then we don't get to see the whole thing, and then it switches back to Luke's perspective, and we see the thing turn, and it looks like a centaur or something. I mean, again, we don't see the whole thing yet. We just see that it's obviously like has like four legs that have hooves on them. And then we see him get picked up, brought over to the trees, and then hung up on the tree exactly how Hutch, Phil, and the elk were all hung up from trees, just like that. So.
Correct.
Dom is now out, and then Luke is now the only one left. And then as that is happening, like the god is, I don't know, or the centaur thing is out there doing whatever it's doing. And then he does manage to get out at this point. I think this is after the bald-headed dude comes in. Oh, no, that's not yet. After he gets out, he goes in like their supply room, and he finds this like ancient gun. And he only has like 2 bullets for it that he has to search all around for. But anyway, so he loads 1 bullet in, and he goes to get out, and that's where bald-headed Hills Have Eyes Swedish guy confronts him.
Well, before that, the young woman comes back and explains what this is. That's a Jotun.
Well, yeah, it's a Jotun. It's one of Loki's bastard children, is what she says it is.
And it's what Moldar is the name of it. I'm trying to remember.
I don't know.
I know she says the name.
I don't know if they said the name of it. I just said, it was a Jotun, which is the frost giant in in Norse
Right.
mythology. And that it's one of
Yes.
Loki's bastard children. And since Loki was himself a Jotun, so it basically any of his children. But yeah. So who knows? What Loki's children was what? Yeah, one was a big giant snake. One of them was a girl that was half dead, and the other one was a giant wolf. So I guess he can pretty much give birth to whatever he wanted to.
And one was Hela.
Well, that was the daughter that was she was half alive and half dead, and she was the ruler of Hell.
Yeah. Fenrir.
Fenrir was the giant wolf, and then Jormundir was the world serpent, was the huge giant snake. Those were his three children.
Yes.
So yeah, Hela was a little bit different than the Thor movie.
Very much.
But no, yeah, those were his three children. But I guess he could have had bastard children. That is, I guess, a possibility. Sure.
Yeah, and the woman explains to him that he either, because he's marked, he either has to worship it or be sacrificed. Those are his two choices.
Right. Yeah. But since he's been marked,
and she leaves, and then he escapes. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But since he's been marked, he has the choice. But since Dom didn't have the mark, it picked him for sacrifice. He didn't have a choice. He couldn't worship it if he wanted to.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, so then it happens. He shoots, Hills Have Eyes Swedish guy with the one bullet. And then he gets a torch, and then he goes outside, and there's a guy with an axe, but the guy is not looking at him at all. And then he tells him to put down the axe, and he does, but then he goes into his praying pose, and he looks out the window, and you can see the centaur feet are there again. So it's whatever it is obviously outside. So he grabs a torch, and he goes upstairs. This is the room that the screaming was coming from Dom. And he goes in there, and it's set up like an old timey church. But all the people sitting in the pews appear to be corpses. Corpses with all kinds of weird decorations, and then it looks like plants are growing out of them, and it looks
that's where the record is just continuously skipping too, right?
So that was in the room that they first broke into.
Okay.
Yeah, that was what the record part. So he's kind of looks around, and he's again assumes these are all corpses until they start making noise and they start moving. So they're essentially like corpses, they can barely move, but they are technically still in some level of life, right? Because they're hissing and making noises and shit. And his reaction is just to light them on fire. He just holds the torch directly to their face and just lights them on fire. And then he lights all the people on all those, whatever they are, on fire. And then leaves. And then everybody starts panicking because stuff's on fire. The creature is very upset that things are on fire. He ends up killing, or at least maiming, the one lady who was nice to him, the only one that spoke English. Tore out her eyes.
Right.
Because
I'm pretty sure she's dead.
Tore out her eyes because it was, upset what was happening. And then he manages to sneak out, and he manages to get kind of outside the rim of the city, and he looks in, and then that's where we get to see the creature in its full kind of glory now. And it's it's like a centaur thing, but then it's the head is kind of shaped like a weird human body but backwards, and then it's got 4 sets of arms in addition to the 2 hooved sets of legs. It's very, very bizarre looking. But anyway, so it picks up somebody else, and it's whatever, picking him apart. I don't know what the hell it's doing, but it's obviously hurting this person. And he turns and shoots. I'm not sure if he shoots the creature or the person, because when he shoots, the person immediately drops, but obviously the creature is not injured in any way. So I don't know if he shot it and it just didn't react to it, or if he shot.
I think he just shoots at the creature.
Okay.
I think he just shoots at the Jotun.
Right. So he doesn't have any more bullets. So then he just has the axe that the one guy dropped earlier. Then he's running through the forest, and then he gets another flashback of the liquor store, which basically tells him to turn this other direction. So he turns the other direction. He's running down the liquor store aisles while this thing is chasing him. And eventually overtakes him and then kind of knocks him down. And then they have a little scuffle, and he manages to hatchet the thing in its, I don't know, head, face, whatever. I don't know what it hit. It hit something fleshy, but I mean,
I think it gives I think it gives it a chance, essentially, to still gives Luke the chance to pray or be sacrificed. Still gives him the option.
Right. Yeah, but then he goes in like the prey stance, and then it like stands up on its hind leg and it spreads like all its arms and legs open. And then he gets up and it gets mad, and then it like forces him back down on the ground. And then he like gets up in its like stance again, and then he picks up the axe and he chops it. And again, I don't know where he chops it. Some fleshy area. And the thing kind of screams, and then he gets up and runs, and he manages to run to the edge of the forest and out of the forest. And then the creature is at the edge of the forest, like screaming at him, and obviously it can't leave the forest because it just stands there. And then he screams
its
back.
Domain.
Yeah, and they go back and forth a couple of times, and then the end of the movie.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, this is. Let's get into your first thoughts on this. This is probably my third time watching it, maybe fourth. What about you? I mean, what were your first thoughts when this came out and your rewatch?
The second time watching it. I mean, yeah, I liked it the first time. I thought it was really good. I thought it was interesting. I mean, I liked the it was a little bit different. It was a little bit of a different kind of creature, than we're used to seeing.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit of different lore mythology than we're used to seeing, which was nice. I like that. But I mean, overall, it was a solid movie.
Yeah, I mean, I thought, I don't remember who I was talking to about this in 2017. I don't think it was you. But I'm like, this movie, like the creature was astounding. The story was astounding. Everything was. It felt like what we would have in America with a Wendigo or Skinwalker type creature, or an old school Native American creature in the Appalachian area that we would have in America. But this, as you said, this is a different culture, and the pagan side of it and what those creatures, tons are. And it's nice that it's set up the same way, but just different past paganism versus, I guess there's all paganism back then, but yeah, different culture aspect of it. I thought it was done really, really well. I thought the creature effect was done really, really well as well. Everything was done.
But again, it's got the thing that I like a lot when a movie or a show or whatever has lore, but they don't give you everything. There's a lot of mystery there as to what the hell is going on. Like, what is with those corpses in that church? It is never even mentioned by any other character. We only see that it was like there's obviously something happening with Dom up there. Dom never said anything about it. Obviously that's like the weird corpsey type people. Like, what the hell is happening there? Like, the guy that looked like was sitting in like the priest position was blue. Again, like the Jotuns are traditionally, shown as being blue. Like, was that supposed to be an old corpse Jotun? I mean, who knows? Who knows what that is? We don't know. Are those people? Because again, the lady, when she was talking to him, alluded that they live forever. So are those the people that have been here for so long that they're literally like living corpses? So like, you still kind of age, you just keep living, which is bizarre. Like, what's the point then? But yeah, like, who knows? Is that what's going on? But again, there's a lot of questions that aren't answered. So there's a lot of things you can, come up with hypotheses about. But again, nobody's right because nobody knows. But there's that mystery.
And I don't think we ever see how they get. They don't know. They don't explain how they get the mark. Who gives them the mark? Is it the Jotun? Is it something else that marks them?
Right. Who knows? Again, there's a lot of empty, questions there that they're not answered, and I like that. There's enough answered to where you know what's happening, right? But you don't know the whole of it. So like, they can easily have, another sequel or two, and you get little other bits of stuff that's going on, and you still wouldn't have the whole story, right? But again, I like when things do that, when they have enough of that lore, but they keep you, guessing, and they keep you coming back for more because they don't give you just everything. I hate when they have that exposition dump of like, okay, here's the character that's going to tell you everything that's happening and why, and the whole history of this land and people and blah, blah, blah. They like to
His
do
name
that.
was Mark. He came down in 970 AD,
Right,
and
yeah.
people have been worshiping the town forever.
Right, yeah, like it's all spelled out for you. There's no mystery. This is like the really. I mean, we get some answers, but not enough. Not enough at all. We don't know what's going on, and we don't find out if the guy that
Right,
had his credit card expire, if he's one of those people or not. We don't know. It could have been the bald guy.
No, it is.
We don't know.
So obviously, that's a highlight for you. Is the world building of this?
Right.
I absolutely agree that the lore isn't there, and I really like the fact that we don't have to have all the answers because we are just as confused as the group is.
Right.
That's the idea. Yeah. We are with them. We are with the hiking group. We are with Luke and Dom and all that because we don't know what's going on. And we don't need to know. It doesn't matter. We're right there with them. You know. What other highlights do you have for this?
I want to say just the scenery. Just the place that they were at looked beautiful. Like I would love to walk that path. If it looks like that the whole time, I would love to walk it. But again, in real life, there's probably a lot more people there. But it looked beautiful. It looked gorgeous. But they were saying, like how Sweden was mostly untouched because loggers stopped before they got that far or whatever it was. But it looked beautiful. It looked great. I mean, I thought it was awesome. And then again, we already talked about it a little bit, but I would say, that creature design is great. I don't know who designed it, but it's a very unique design. I mean, it's not just like, a lot of times they'll take an existing monster and then put a little spin on it, this one just felt very just unique. I mean, like there's not anything quite like that I know of. Weird centaur with 4 sets of hands at different points along its body with a weird fleshy Jawa head. I mean, who knows what the hell was going on with that, but and antlers. Don't forget it had big antlers too.
Yes. Yeah. And to your point, the creature design. It reminded me it could have been the same design of did you watch the movie Antlers?
No. I know of it.
It's a similar the creature design is on par with that. I think there was I don't think it was Into the Dark. Do you remember? Oh, we watched it. It was about people who were praying to this weird box in the basement of an apartment building, and the creature that came out of the box, like that never-ending tunnel box. You know what I'm talking about? Where it bit the heads off of people. I can't think of that.
Was that Archive 81?
Was it Archive 81?
Yeah,
it might have been.
So. If you're talking about the weird the basement with the weird fungus growing on the wall,
and that people are being sacrificed on the table in the basement to some weird creature that came out of the box.
Yeah. I think I'm pretty sure because that was something we both watched that we probably would have discussed.
Yeah, and that is one of those otherworldly creatures too. Those all three are very, very unique. Yeah, very memorable.
Yeah, there was the scene of it coming out of the TV while the guy was watching the thing. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, then that's Archive 81.
Okay. But no, the creature effects are amazing. I thought the acting was amazing too.
Yeah,
everyone did a great job.
Yeah, they did a good job of being the friends in there. That would be I think that's my low point in this is that one is Dom was super annoying, but I guess every friend group, you got to have the annoying one. If they didn't have this annoying guy, they probably wouldn't have even tried taking that shortcut, right? If the guy didn't hurt himself and then be whiny about it. So I guess they kind of needed him to be annoying to be a plot device. But also how everybody just kind of turned on him like that. You weren't in that liquor store, man. You know what I mean? He just got straight up hit with a pipe in the head and murdered. What do you want him to do?
Right. I agree that is also a low point. Is they unjustly blame him. Yeah, he wanted the vodka. Yeah, he persuaded someone to go in there with him.
Well, again, he didn't persuade him. He said, "Does anybody want to come in there with me?" Oh, come on, nobody? And one guy was like, all right, fine. But he could have stayed out. But again, you can't blame someone for what, even if he said, oh, you need to come in here with me. he didn't know that it was being fucking robbed.
No.
He didn't know that his life would
Out
be
of his
put in
control.
danger. Obviously, you can't blame him for that. And yeah, they
No.
all just like immediately were like, all of his friends, all three of them were like, yeah, it's your fault. Like, how is it his fault? I felt that was very unfair.
And he felt bad as it was.
Yeah, you could tell he was like obviously not in a good place. I mean, he was obviously messed up.
Traumatized, yeah.
And like these people are like, yeah, it was your fault. You didn't even have any blood on you. Like, what does that mean? What do you want him to do? Roll around in it? What the hell is he supposed to do? I don't know. It just bothered me how shitty those people were. And like, he should have written them off and he should have just left and hiked on his own and left them all behind. Like, screw you guys.
Yeah. Do you have any other low points though?
No, I'm not outside of that.
No, I think it was that.
I mean, they made a lot of stupid decisions. If I went into a cabin in the woods and they had some kind of weird scarecrow deity, and I would sit in the rain outside. I don't care. I'm not going to sleep in a house with a weird deity scarecrow and nope. Not going to happen.
Well, I guess the only low point I'd have is you're going on a hike that's some distance. Someone could easily sprain an ankle. Why don't people have something to help something like that? Like some splints or something just to carry with you.
Well, again, that's why you stay on the trail. Like it's a well-known, well-marked trail. Like people will come along. You know what I mean? Like people will help you. That's the point of the trail. Like if somebody is injured, why the hell would you take a shortcut through the woods that you don't know?
The woods is more treacherous of a terrain than the well-marked path.
Like what are you thinking? Again, the best path there is again the first one that they suggested. Okay, he stays here, somebody stays with him, and then the rest of us, or the other two, go get help and bring help back. Done, right? It would have been easy. They had enough food and supplies that they would have been fine for a couple of days. They had tents and stuff. They would have been fine.
Yep.
Yeah. And again, instead they decided to take this shortcut to the forest. But I guess the movie would not have happened if they didn't do that, right? That's why this is the story that we're watching, because they're stupid enough to do.
Right. Anyone who's injured tries to go through a forest as opposed to a trail is dumb.
Yes. If you are walking along a well-marked trail in an area that you don't know, do not get off the path.
Yes. Oh, and by the way, I just looked up. There was a movie. It was No One Gets Out Alive that I was thinking of.
What do you mean?
I think the movie with the creature coming out of the box, it was No One Gets Out Alive. That also had the creature that reminded me of the Jotun in this.
Okay. Never heard of it.
I think you watched it. Okay.
Well, I don't think so. Right. I don't know. There's a lot of movies that I've seen that I don't remember I watched them until I start watching them.
I think they came out last year, about the same time as Archive 81. So it might have been why we thought that. But anyway, so, I mean, how many Lost Hikers out of 10 would you give this movie?
7. 7 Lost Hikers out of 10, yeah.
I mean, like I said, for the reasons that we stated, it's a good movie. I like to rewatch this. I've watched it, like I said, a handful of times. It's just a fun watch. I mean, it is serious thriller horror. There's the pacing is great. There's no humor thrown in there, and unnecessarily or anything like that. So, I'm giving it an 8.5. I thought this movie was astounding. I wanted to see more. I'm pretty sure I picked up the book because of watching the movie. It's based off a book.
Yeah.
So, pretty sure I have the book. I haven't read it yet, but, when I see a movie like this that comes out and it's based off of a book, I'm like, okay, I need to read the book too. Because if the movie is great, the book's going to be better. Usually.
Well,
right?
It can be. I've learned that that's not always the case. Sometimes they take, older kind of dated stories and they update them, and they're usually, better for a modern audience. I'm not going to say better overall. I would say better for a modern audience.
Yeah, there you
And I looked it up, and yes, I did see No One Gets Out Alive. Because I was like, oh, yep. I remember that.
Yep.
So yeah, I
But
saw
that
it
creature,
probably around the same time, which is probably why I mixed them together as well.
Yeah, we were watching. I think it came out. We were both in the middle of Archive 81.
Yeah,
and that movie.
I'm pretty sure we both
watch
watched both of those at the same time, which is why they're mixed together. Makes sense. But yes, no, I have seen that.
Yeah, same like the silent creature design, and this was right up there with. I love, and I really want to do more of these. I think we need to do like a folklore episode as well, because folklore horror movies are pretty good.
Well, there's a lot of them. We'd have a huge list.
Right. So, all right, why don't you go ahead and bring us out unless you have anything else to add.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Join us next week as animals attack. Bears, warthogs, and cocaine. Oh my. Will we get gored or just plain bored as we watch these killer animal movies? So stay tuned next week, and remember, we watch bad movies so you don't have to.
And this has been Graveyard saying, have you checked on the children?
This is Salem saying, long live the new flesh.
Good
night.